Hey, I'm live. Couldn't find the book. I had to hunt under layers on the couch like strata. Fitz is wandering around somewhere. He's doing his thing. It's fine. Uh-oh. Book went upside down. Fitzy's here. Right. We're going to do a recap. I know some people would rather be watching the news, but I do not want to watch the news. Right, last time. Yeah, last time on Wuthering Heights, Nellie went to Wuthering Heights. Oh, God, I know, right? I get my news from Twitter. Like I should. What? You want to go outside again immediately? Really? Hi. Hi, we're all here. Meet the gang because the boys are here. I haven't seen It Ain't Half Hot Mum in a really long time. I saw a bit of an episode, realized it was a white dude doing blackface to pretend to be an Indian man, and I was like, oh no. Oh no. But yeah, anyway. So I want, if possible, Josh, I'd love for you to do like an answering machine message for me, but in the Picard voice, like, my name is Jean-Luc Picard and Katrin is with me in space or some shit, doing an adventure. It won't be funny unless like the words are things that he wouldn't say. It's a joke. It's a joke crafter's craft, if you will. Anyway, yeah, last time on Wuthering Heights. Nellie was worried. And kept wandering down to Wuthering Heights, but she was too scared to go in. Yeah. Like, damn, that's what's up. That would be good in the card voice, I think. Although if I have an answering machine message like that, the only person who's going to call it is going to be delivering terrible news. Like, yeah. Danny can't come to the phone. She's off doing adventures or shit in space. So Nellie wanders over to the to Wuthering Heights, and she usually runs away. But she sees Hareton, the little boy, and he tells her that she asks him a question, and he swears a lot at her, and she's like, oh my god, who taught you to say that? He says, Devil Daddy. By which he means Heathcliff. Heathcliff is teaching him to swear at Hindley. Which is like, it's something. It's a small revenge and kind of an adorable one, but it's not very good. And then okay, we covered the fact that Isabella Linton, Edgar's 18-year-old sister, is in love with Heathcliff, and Kathy tried to tell her, he's a piece of shit, you don't want that. And she was like, you don't even know what I want. So Heathcliff comes round. Catherine forcibly detains Isabella and tells Heathcliff all about it. And she's like, oh my god, this is so embarrassing, don't do that. And he's like, I don't give a shit, I do not care. And then sorry. Then yesterday, Heathcliff creeps up on Isabella in the garden and pashes her, and Kathy sees, and she's like, what? And Heathcliff is like, I don't give a fuck, like, I don't care. Isabella runs away. And Kathy gets really mad. Heathcliff's like, "What? You're not my wife. You don't get to be mad at me." And she's like, "No, I'm your girlfriend. You are my husband's wife's boyfriend. This is working." And Edgar comes in and he's like, "This is not working." They get into a little bit of a fight. Edgar punches Heathcliff in the neck, which is the funniest place. Basically, Heathcliff wants Kathy to be more jealous. So Heathcliff just kind of dominates Edgar Linton completely in front of his wife, and Kathy's like joining in, going, "God, you're such a weak man. You fucking suck, dude." And then afterwards, no one wants to talk to her, and she's like, "What did I do, Nellie? I did nothing wrong this whole time." So Kathy faked a seizure or some kind of terrible paroxysm to make Edgar feel guilty. And Nellie was like, "She's faking. She told me she would fake this, like the moment you walked in." Kathy somehow snaps out of this fit she's in and goes to bed and doesn't eat anything. I did nothing wrong. I'm an angel. So the last chapter ends. Isabella and Edgar, had an hour's interview, during which he tried to elicit from her some sentiment of proper horror for Heathcliff's advances, but he could make nothing of her evasive replies and was obliged to close the examination unsatisfactorily, adding, however, a solemn warning that if she were so insane as to encourage that worthless suitor, it would dissolve all bonds of relationship between herself and him. So, Heathcliff, not a nice guy, currently destroying Hindley, mad at Kathy, aware that Isabella is Edgar's heir, and he fucking hates Edgar too, so I'm sure everything will be fine. I keep thinking I hear a cat at the door, but I don't. So if I turn around a lot, that's what I'm doing. Right, so we are up to Wuthering Heights, chapter 12. While Miss Linton moped about the park and garden, always silent and almost always in tears, and her brother shut himself up among books that he never opened, wearying, I guess, with a continual vague expectation that Catherine, repenting her conduct, would come of her own accord to ask pardon and seek a reconciliation, and that she fasted pertinaciously, under the idea, probably, that at every meal Edgar was ready to choke for her absence, and pride alone held him from running to cast himself at her feet. I went about my household duties, convinced that the Grange had but one sensible soul in its walls, and that lodged in my body. Nellie is so good. I love Nellie. I wasted no condolences on Miss, nor any expostulations on my mistress, nor did I pay much attention to the sighs of my master, who yearned to hear his lady's name, since he might not hear her voice. I determined they should come about as they pleased for me, and though it was a tiresomely slow process, I began to rejoice at length in a faint dawn of its progress, as I thought at first. I mean, Edgar is playing Kathy's game right now of just hanging out, expecting an apology. He's gonna lose. Kathy's been playing this game since she was born. Nellie is so great. She's just like, shut the fuck up. You're not gonna fire me. I'm the only person who can pour water without setting everything on fire for generations. Mrs. Linton, on the third day, unbarred her door, and having finished the water in her pitcher and decanter, desired a renewed supply. and a basin of gruel, for she believed she was dying. That I set down as a speech meant for Edgar's ears. I believed no such thing. So I kept it to myself and brought her some tea and dry toast. She ate and drank eagerly and sank back on her pillow again, clenching her hands and groaning. "Oh, I will die," she exclaimed, "since no one cares anything about me. I wish I had not taken that." Flippin' Kathy. When she says taken that, she's not talking about like pills or anything. She means breakfast. Then a good while after, I heard her murmur, "No, I'll not die. He'll be glad. He does not love me at all. He would never miss me." "Did you want anything, ma'am?" I inquired, still preserving my external composure, in spite of her ghastly countenance and strange, exaggerated manner. "It's a hangover. It's a spiritual hangover." "And what is that apathetic being doing?" she demanded, pushing the thick and tangled locks from her wasted face. "Has he fallen into a lethargy, or is he dead?" "Neither," replied I, "if you mean Mr. Linton. He's tolerably well, I think, though his studies occupy him rather more than they ought. He is continually among his books, since he has no other society." I should not have spoken so if I had known her true condition, but I could not get rid of the notion that she acted a part of her disorder. "Among his books!" she cried, confounded. "And I dying! I on the brink of the grave! My God! Does he know how I'm altered?" continued she, staring at her reflection in a mirror hanging against the opposite wall. "Is that Catherine Linton? He imagines me in a pet, in play, perhaps. Cannot you inform him that it is frightful earnest? Nelly, if it be not too late, as soon as I learn how he feels, I'll choose between these two, either to starve at once, and that would be no punishment unless he had a heart, or to recover and leave the country. Are you speaking the truth about him now? Take care. Is he actually so utterly indifferent for my life?" Every line of Kathy's is more dramatic than the last. I love it. "Why, ma'am," I answered, "the master has no idea of your being deranged, and of course he does not fear that you will let yourself die of hunger." "You think not?" "Cannot you tell him I will?" she returned. "Persuade him. Speak of your own mind. Say you are certain I will." Drama bitch, yes, and Heathcliff is also a messy drama bitch, and they just absolutely. It kind of is a love story between two people who are really horrible and deserve only each other as a reward and a punishment. "No, you forget, Mrs. Linton," I suggested, "that you have eaten some food with relish this evening, and tomorrow you will perceive its good effects." "If I were only sure it would kill him," she interrupted, "I'd kill myself directly. These 3 awful nights I've never closed my lids, and oh, I've been tormented. I've been haunted, Nelly. But I begin to fancy you don't like me. How strange. I thought that though everybody hated and despised each other, they could not avoid loving me. And they have all turned to enemies in a few hours. They have, I'm positive, the people here. How dreary to meet death surrounded by their cold faces." Isabella, terrified and repelled, afraid to enter the room. It would be dreadful to watch Catherine go, and Edgar standing solemnly by to see it over, then offering prayers of thanks to God for restoring peace to his house and going back to his books. What in the name of all that feels has he to do with books when I am dying? It's beautiful, isn't it? This is some DSM-5 narcissism shit. I know. When all I've done is to pit people against each other, revealed my sister-in-law's infatuation for a guy who's only in love with me, and called my husband weak and a milk-drinking little rabbit. But why would they dislike me for that? She could not bear the notion which I had put into her head of Mr. Linton's philosophical resignation. Tossing about, she increased her feverish bewilderment to madness, and tore the pillow with her teeth. Then, raising herself up, all burning, desired that I would open the window. We were in the middle of winter. The wind blew strong from the northeast, and I objected. Both the expressions flitting over her face and the changes of her moods began to alarm me terribly, and brought to my recollection her former illness, and the doctor's injunction that she should not be crossed. A minute previously she was violent, now, supported on one arm, and not noticing my refusal to obey her, she seemed to find childish diversion in pulling the feathers from the rents she had just made, and ranging them on the sheet according to their different species. Her mind had strayed to other associations. "That's a turkey's," she murmured to herself, "and this is a wild duck's, and this is a pigeon's. Oh, they put pigeons' feathers in the pillows. No wonder I couldn't die. Let me take care to throw it on the floor when I lay down. And here is a moorcock's, and this, I should know it among 1,000. It's a lapwing's. Bonny bird, wheeling over our heads in the middle of the moor. It wanted to get to its nest, for the clouds had touched the swells, and it felt rain coming. This feather was picked up from the heath, and the bird was not shot. We saw its nest in the winter, full of little skeletons. Heathcliff set a trap over it, and the old ones dared not come. I made him promise he'd never shoot a lapwing after that, and he didn't. Yes, here are more. Did he shoot my lapwings, Nellie? Are they red, any of them? Let me look." I think she just doesn't really know that other people have feelings that can be hurt. Her own feelings are so huge and important. "Give over with that baby work," I interrupted, dragging the pillow away and turning the holes towards the mattress, for she was removing its contents by handfuls. "Lie down and shut your eyes. You're wandering. There's a mess. The down is flying about like snow." I went here and there collecting it. "I see in you, Nellie," she continued dreamily, "an aged woman. You have grey hair and bent shoulders. This bed is the fairy cave under Penistone Crags, and you are gathering elf bolts to hurt our heifers, pretending while I am near that they are only locks of wool. That's what you'll come to 50 years hence. I know you are not so now. I'm not wandering. You're mistaken, or else I should believe you really were that withered hag, and I should think I was under Penistone Crags. And I'm conscious it's night, and there are 2 candles on the table, making the black press shine like jet." "The black press? Where is that?" I asked. "You are talking in your sleep." "It's against the wall, as it always is," she replied. "It does appear odd. I see a face in it." "There's no press in the room, and never was," said I, resuming my seat and looping up the curtain that I might watch her. "Don't you see that face?" she inquired, gazing earnestly at the mirror. And say what I could, I was incapable of making her comprehend it to be her own, so I rose and covered it with a shawl. "I think that would be a fair assessment of Kathy." "Yeah." "It's behind there still," she pursued anxiously. "And it stirred. Who is it? I hope it will not come out when you are gone. Oh, Nellie, the room is haunted. I'm afraid of being alone." I took her hand in mine and bid her be composed, for a succession of shudders convulsed her frame, and she would keep straining her gaze towards the glass. "There's nobody there," I insisted. "It was yourself, Mrs. Linton. You knew it a while since." "Myself!" she gasped. "And the clock is striking 12. It's true, then. It's dreadful." Her fingers clutched the clothes and gathered them over her eyes. I attempted to steal to the door with an intention of calling her husband, but I was summoned back by a piercing shriek. The shawl had dropped from the frame. "Why, what is the matter?" cried I. "Who is coward now? Wake up! That is the glass. The mirror, Mrs. Linton, and you see yourself in it, and there I am too, by your side." Yeah, it's a level of tantruming that, even I have not reached yet. Trembling and bewildered, she held me fast, but the horror gradually passed from her countenance. Its paleness gave place to a glow of shame. "Oh dear, I thought I was at home," she sighed. "I thought I was lying in my chamber at Wuthering Heights." Because I'm weak, my brain got confused and I screamed unconsciously. "Don't say anything, but stay with me. I dread sleeping. My dreams appall me." "A sound sleep would do you good, ma'am," I answered, "and I hope this suffering will prevent your trying starving again." "Oh, if I were but in my own bed in the old house," she went on bitterly, wringing her hands, "and that wind sounding in the firs by the lattice. Do let me feel it. It comes straight down the moor. Do let me have one breath." To pacify her, I held the casement ajar a few seconds. A cold blast rushed through. I closed it and returned to my post. She lay still now, her face bathed in tears. Exhaustion of body had entirely subdued her spirit. Our fiery Catherine was no better than a wailing child. "How long is it since I shut myself in here?" she asked, suddenly reviving. "It was Monday evening," I replied, "and this is Thursday night, or rather Friday morning at present." "What, of the same week?" she exclaimed. "Only that brief time." "Long enough to live on nothing but cold water and ill temper," observed I. Oh, Nellie is just clowning on Kathy nonstop. "Well, it seems a weary number of hours," she muttered doubtfully. "It must be more." I remember being in the parlour after they had quarrelled, and Edgar being cruelly provoking, and me running into this room, desperate. As soon as ever I had barred the door, utter blackness overwhelmed me, and I fell on the floor. I couldn't explain to Edgar how certain I felt of having a fit, or going raging mad if he persisted in teasing me. I had no command of tongue or brain, and he did not guess my agony, perhaps. It barely left me sense to try to escape from him and his voice. Before I recovered sufficiently to see and hear, it began to be dawn. And Nellie, I'll tell you what I thought, and what has kept recurring and recurring till I feared for my reason. I thought as I lay there, with my head against that table leg and my eyes dimly discerning the grey square of the window, that I was enclosed in the oak-panelled bed at home, and my heart ached with some great grief which, just waking, I could not recollect. I pondered and worried myself to discover what it could be, and most strangely, the whole last 7 years of my life grew a blank. I did not recall that they had been at all. I was a child. My father was just buried, and my misery arose from the separation that Hindley had ordered between me and Heathcliff. I was laid down alone for the first time, and rousing from a dismal doze after a night of weeping, I lifted my hand to push the panels aside. It struck the table-top. I swept it along the carpet, and then memory burst in. My late anguish was swallowed in a paroxysm of despair. I cannot say why I felt so wildly wretched. It must have been some temporary derangement, for there is scarcely cause. But supposing at 12 years old I had been wrenched from the heights, and every early association, and my all in all, as Heathcliff was at that time, and been converted at a stroke into Mrs. Linton, the lady of Thrushcross Grange, and the wife of a stranger, an exile, an outcast thenceforth from what had been my world. You may fancy a glimpse of the abyss where I grovelled. Shake your head as you will, Nellie, you have helped to unsettle me. You should have spoken to Edgar. Indeed you should, and compelled him to leave me quiet. I'm burning. I wish I were out of doors. I wish I were a girl again, half savage and hardy and free, and laughing at injuries, not maddening under them. Why am I so changed? Why does my blood rush into a hell of tumult in a few words? I'm sure I should be myself were I once among the heather on those hills. Open the window again, wide. Fasten it open. Quick, why don't you move? Because I won't give you your death of cold, I answered. You won't give me a chance of life, you mean, she said sullenly. However, I'm not helpless yet. I'll open it myself. And sliding from the bed before I could hinder her, she crossed the room, walking very uncertainly, threw it back, and bent out, careless of the frosty air that cut about her shoulders as keen as a knife. I entreated and finally attempted to force her to retire. But I soon found her delirious strength much surpassed mine, and she was delirious, I became convinced by her subsequent actions and ravings. There was no moon, and everything beneath lay in misty darkness. Not a light gleamed from any house, far or near. All had been extinguished long ago, and those at Wuthering Heights were never visible. Till still she asserted that she saw there shining. And this is a picture from the book. The caption, "To run away to the moors in the morning and remain there all day," which is it's Kathy and Heathcliff on a rock, just hanging out in the moors as kids, having a lovely time. Yep, you can still get a picture book when you're a grown-up, as long as they're black and white line drawings. Look, she cried eagerly. There's my room with the candle in it. Excuse me. Oh, well, I mean, obviously. But I'm going to call it there and come back either later on today or less later on today. Either later on today or tomorrow is what I mean. So, thank you. Everything is fine with me. It's not an emergency or anything, but I'm not going to finish the chapter out. I just want to get onto this. So, thank you very much. See you tomorrow, where Kathy is maybe really delirious, maybe not. So stay safe, wash your hands. See you tomorrow.